I walked into my new home that evening, expecting quiet, the kind of silence that comes after a long day, the kind that reminds you you're finally in control of your own space. But instead, I was met with chaos. Boxes were stacked in the hallway, half-unpacked suitcases covered the floor, and the faint sound of my mother humming drifted from the kitchen. For a second, I thought I had stepped into the wrong house. Then I saw her, standing by the counter, unpacking dishes that weren't hers, a smile on her face like this was the most normal thing in the world. "We thought it'd be easier if we stayed for a while," she said casually, not even looking up. My dad was already sitting on the couch, remote in hand, his shoes off, completely at home in my home. My throat went dry. I stared at the scene in front of me, trying to process what was happening. My house, the place I had dreamed of for years, was already being claimed. Every corner looked different. A framed family photo appeared on a shelf I hadn't decorated yet, and their coats hung on my hooks by the door. "Don't worry, we'll stay out of your way," Mom added, still smiling. But the way she said it made my stomach turn. This wasn't a visit. This was a takeover. I stood there frozen, keys still in hand, as the weight of it sank in. I didn't know it then, but a while, those two simple words, would turn out to mean forever that I'm Emily Carter, 28 years old, and for as long as I can remember, owning a house was my biggest dream. Not because I wanted something luxurious, but because I wanted freedom. I grew up in a cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Dallas, where every decision I made had to go through my parents first. My mom treated me like I was still a little girl who couldn't make a single choice without her approval, and my dad, well, he never really believed in me. When I once mentioned I was saving for a down payment, he laughed and said, "Sweetheart, houses aren't for dreamers. You'll give up after a few months." That day, I silently promised myself I'd prove him wrong. For 5 long years, I worked as a marketing analyst during the day and freelanced at night just to save every extra dollar. I skipped vacations, avoided eating out, and stopped buying things I didn't need. My friends used to tease me for being too focused, but they didn't understand. I wasn't chasing luxury, I was chasing freedom. There were nights I came home, so exhausted I fell asleep with my laptop still open, but I pushed through because I could see the finish line. Every paycheck, every overtime hour, every little sacrifice was a brick in the foundation of my dream. The day I finally held the keys to my house, I cried. Standing there with the closing papers in my hand, it felt unreal. This wasn't just a house. It was proof that I could build something on my own, that I didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. When I called my parents to tell them, I expected at least a hint of pride. Instead, Dad said flatly, "Finally, you've learned responsibility." I smiled, pretending his words didn't sting, but deep down, I knew he didn't mean it as praise. Mom chimed in next, half joking. "We'll have to come see if you decorated it properly. You never had an eye for these things." I laughed it off, but inside it hurt. They had always treated me like the fragile one, the one who needed guidance, advice, and constant supervision. Meanwhile, my younger brother, Jake, could do no wrong. He dropped out of college, quit every job after a few months, and still got unconditional support. Everything came easy for him. I, on the other hand, had to earn every ounce of respect I got, and sometimes I never got it at all. So, when I finally stepped into my own home, I promised myself one thing. This space, this peace, this independence, it would be mine alone. Or at least that's what I thought at first. It seemed harmless, even sweet in a way. Mom would hum softly as she dusted the shelves, telling me how cozy my living room was, but somehow her compliments always came wrapped in criticism. "You really shouldn't have chosen this color for the curtains, Emily," she said one morning, standing by the window with her hands on her hips. "Something brighter would open the room up. I'll pick some samples tomorrow." Before I could even answer, she'd already written it down on her shopping list. Dad wasn't any better. 2 days after they temporarily moved in, I came home to find my furniture rearranged. My record shelf moved near the dining area, my favorite lamp replaced by the one from their old house. "This is better for family time," Dad said proudly, as if my living room weren't mine at all. I wanted to scream, but I bit my tongue. I told myself it was temporary, that they were just trying to help. Then came the relatives. One Saturday, I woke up to laughter downstairs, aunts, cousins, even my brother Jake lounging on my couch like he owned the place. "Your mom said we could stop by," Aunt Karen said, sipping coffee from my mug. "What a lovely home, sweetheart. Feels just like the old days." The old days? She meant were the ones I'd worked years to escape. I smiled tightly, retreating to the kitchen, where every cabinet had been rearranged. My labeled jars, gone. My minimal setup, replaced with Mom's mismatched containers and endless spice racks. "It's more practical this way," she explained when I asked. "You'll thank me later." I never did. The real breaking point, though, came one quiet evening after work. I'd stayed late, exhausted, just craving peace. When I pulled into the driveway, their car wasn't there. Relief washed over me. Maybe they went out for dinner. But as I unlocked the door, I froze. The lights were on. The smell of roast chicken filled the air. I stepped in to find Mom setting the table, Dad watching TV, Jake playing on his phone. "Oh, you're home early," Mom chirped. "We didn't hear from you, so we used our key." Their key. The spare one I'd given them in case of emergencies. My chest tightened. "That wasn't an emergency," I said quietly, but no one heard me. Or maybe they just didn't care. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, surrounded by boxes I hadn't even finished unpacking. My house, my dream, and felt like a guest in it. Every sound from downstairs reminded me of one thing. The freedom I'd fought for was slipping away. One helpful gesture at a time. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of quiet weekday that should have felt normal. I was finishing work in my office when my phone buzzed with a bank alert. $327 spent at Greenfield Market. My stomach dropped. I hadn't been grocery shopping. I walked into the kitchen to find Mom unloading bags of food, smiling like nothing was wrong. "You're welcome," she said. "I restocked everything. You barely had anything decent to eat." I swallowed hard. "Did you use my card?" She waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't start that. We're family. It's all the same, right?" Dad looked up from his paper and added, "You should be grateful, Emily. We're keeping this house running while you're off working all day." My jaw tightened. "Keeping it running? This is my home. I didn't ask you to do that." Mom frowned. "Don't talk to us like that. We raised you. You owe us some respect." I felt something inside me snap. "Respect? I've given you nothing but respect, but that doesn't mean you get to take advantage of me." The room went still. For the first time, they looked at me like I was a stranger. Then Dad leaned forward, voice calm but cutting. "You wouldn't even have this place if it weren't for us. Who taught you how to save? How to work hard?" His tone dripped with entitlement, as if every success I'd earned was theirs to claim. "You're unbelievable," I whispered. "You didn't even believe I could buy this house. And now that I have, you've moved in like it's yours." I turned toward my office, desperate to cool off, but that's when I saw it. The framed painting I bought to celebrate my first paycheck, gone from the hallway wall. "Where's my painting?" I asked sharply. Mom didn't even blink. "Oh, that old thing? We gave it to Karen. It didn't fit your decor anyway." My heart pounded. "You gave away my things?" I couldn't believe the words coming out of her mouth. "Emily, calm down," she said, tone suddenly patronizing. "You're overreacting. It's just stuff." I stared at her, trying to process how casually she'd said it, how easily she dismissed what was mine. "It's not about the stuff," I said quietly, trembling. "It's about boundaries, something you clearly don't understand." Dad stood up then, trying to assert authority. "We're your parents. You should be grateful we're even here to help you." My voice rose before I could stop it. "Help me? You've taken over my home, rearranged my life, spent my money, and now you're giving away my things. That's not help, that's control." Silence filled the kitchen, heavy and cold. For once, they didn't have a quick comeback. Mom crossed her arms, her voice sharp as glass. "If you're going to act ungrateful, maybe we should just leave." My breath caught, and I looked her dead in the eye. Maybe you should. That was the moment something shifted. The scared, people-pleasing daughter they used to control was gone. I didn't yell again. I didn't explain. I just turned, walked into my room, and shut the door, the sound of it closing echoing louder than any argument we'd ever had. That night I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there in silence, staring at the ceiling, and something inside me shifted from anger to clarity. I realized yelling wouldn't help. They'd twist it into guilt, make me feel like the bad guy again. So I did something they'd never expect, nothing dramatic. I went methodical. The next morning, I got up earlier than them, and started making calls. First, my realtor, to confirm my ownership rights and ask what legal options I had if temporary guests refused to leave. Then a lawyer. Within an hour, I learned exactly what to do. As the sole homeowner, I could legally evict them with written notice. It sounded harsh, but at that point, I knew it was the only way to take my home back. Still, I didn't move too fast. I wanted this to be clean, undeniable. So I began documenting everything. The purchases they made using my card, the changes they made without permission, the nights I had to sleep with headphones just to block out their noise. Every text, every "we're family, you owe us," became proof. I stopped arguing, stopped reacting. When Mom criticized me for being cold, I just smiled and said, "I'm just tired." When Dad demanded I hand him my spare car key in case of emergencies, I nodded, but quietly changed the locks that evening. Then, I set the plan in motion. I told them my company was sending me on a 2-week remote project that required renovations to the house for soundproofing and Wi-Fi installation. I even printed a fake notice from the contractor, one I made myself. They bought it completely. Mom sighed dramatically, saying, "Well, I suppose we can stay with Karen until it's done." I hugged her, pretending to be grateful. Inside, I was already planning the real renovation, my life without them in it. The moment they drove away, I exhaled, a deep, quiet breath I didn't know I'd been holding for weeks. My house was silent again. For the first time since I'd bought it, it actually felt like mine. And as I sat on the couch surrounded by the pieces of my reclaimed home, I thought, this isn't revenge. This is peace, and I earned it. The renovation week went smoother than I ever imagined. The moment my parents' car pulled out of the driveway, I called my lawyer and filed the official notice, a legal document stating that, effective immediately, they were no longer permitted to reside in the home. It felt surreal. All those years of feeling powerless, of being treated like the child who couldn't make decisions, gone with one signed form. I spent the next few days cleaning the house, reclaiming my space. Every corner they had cluttered, I emptied. Every frame they'd replaced with family photos, I put back the art I loved. It wasn't just cleaning, it was healing. A week later, the contractor team arrived right on schedule, complete with trucks and equipment I'd rented for the day. It wasn't an actual renovation, just a symbolic one. They moved things, made noise, replaced fixtures. It gave me time and proof that my parents couldn't come back, even if they tried. When Mom texted that they'd be back Sunday evening, I replied simply, "That won't work. I need more time." Then I attached a photo of the posted notice on the door. Her response came fast. "What is this? Are you kicking us out?" I didn't reply. Instead, I waited until the next day when she and Dad showed up unannounced, their faces red with confusion and disbelief. "Emily, what is going on?" Mom demanded, waving the letter in her hand. "You can't do this to your own parents." Dad's voice boomed, but this time I didn't flinch. "I already did," I said calmly. "This is my house. You moved in without asking. You spent my money, gave away my things, and ignored every boundary I set. This is the consequence." They looked at me like they were seeing me for the first time. Mom's voice cracked. "But we're family." I nodded slowly. "Exactly. Family respects each other. You didn't." For a moment, no one said anything. Then Dad muttered, "We just thought you'd want us around. You were always so quiet, so alone." I met his eyes. I wasn't alone. I was independent, until you decided that made you uncomfortable. They didn't apologize. They never really did. But as they packed their things from the porch, just a few boxes I'd left outside for them, I could see it, the realization, the shock of losing control. For once, they were the ones without power, and I didn't need to raise my voice or prove anything to make it happen. A few weeks later, they tried again. Mom called, her tone unusually soft. "We miss you, sweetheart. Maybe we could come visit, just for dinner." I smiled at the phone, but my voice stayed steady. "Mom, if you want to visit, you can. But as guests, not residents. And next time, you'll knock before entering." Silence. Then a quiet, resigned sigh. "All right," she said. "We'll call first." That was enough. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace, and now I had it. My house was my sanctuary again, filled with quiet mornings, warm light, and no tension lingering in the air. Sometimes, when I pass by the spot where Dad once moved my record shelf, I smile, not in bitterness, but in pride. They thought control meant love. I showed them that love, real love, starts with respect. And as I closed the door that night, locking it behind me, I whispered to myself, lesson learned for all of us. It's been 3 months since that day, and the house finally feels alive again, but this time it's mine. No tension, no footsteps that don't belong, no condescending advice disguised as love. Just quiet mornings with coffee on the porch, the sound of my own music playing softly in the background, and the peace I fought so hard for. My parents and we talk, but it's different now. The calls are polite, shorter, and distant, like two sides learning how to exist without crossing each other's boundaries. I used to ache for their approval, for that feeling of being a good daughter, but now I realize I never needed permission to live my own life. Mom still slips little comments into our conversations. "Your house must feel so big when it's just you," or "We should come help decorate for the holidays." But I've learned how to smile and gently say, "I've got it covered, Mom." No anger, no guilt, just calm boundaries. Dad, on the other hand, has gone quieter. Sometimes I think he respects me more now, though he'll never admit it out loud. When I sent him a photo of my garden, something I started after they left, he texted back, "Looks good, kid. Proud of you." It wasn't much, but it was something. Jake stopped by once, just to drop off some boxes of their things I'd kept. He lingered awkwardly, looking around the house like he didn't quite recognize it anymore. "It really suits you," he said finally. I smiled. "Yeah," I replied. "It finally does." The truth is, this whole experience taught me something I'll never forget. Family love doesn't give anyone the right to invade your peace. You can care, you can forgive, but you don't have to surrender yourself in the process. Because home isn't just a structure with walls and keys. It's the boundary you build to protect your peace, your growth, and your freedom. And now, every time I lock the door behind me at night, I don't feel guilty for wanting space. I feel proud because I kept my house and I kept my peace.